here, get everything rolling. You can hear the washer running downstairs. It's getting louder and louder. That's probably not a good thing. All right. There we go. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, morning. Happy Sunday. Welcome to your early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum here with some words of wisdom to start your day off well. And we have an interesting reading for today. This time it's out of Taking the War Out of Our Words, The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication by Sharon Ellison. And this little section that I've picked out for us today feels very spot on and feels like it's going to be useful, not just on a personal level, but on a macro level. As we look at what's going on in our world, I think this section fits perfectly. So we'll give it a minute for a few of you to pop on. We'll see where the practical rebels are at today. Feels like we need to do some breathing and some tapping. So let us begin. Let's do the whole thing. So start with the side of your hand, kind of a reset spot. And I may throw some words in there, I may not. We'll see. Fully present, fully grounded, inside corner of the eyebrows. Good morning, Barb. We're just going to do a round of tapping to bring ourselves into the present. Outside corner of the eyes, focused on right here, right now. Wide open to receiving the message. Ready to make some changes to our interactions. Ready to improve our communication with others. Collarbone, particularly the people we struggle with. Under the arms, improving communication. Around the crown of the head, I'm in for that. Inside corner of the eyebrows. But what if I'm not? Outside corner of the eyes. What if I want to hang on to my negative feelings and cherish them? Under the eyes. What if I want to win? Under the nose. What if I know they're wrong? Good morning to whomever else is here. Glad you're here. Under the mouth. I want to win. Collarbone. But I also want to communicate well. Good morning, Glenn. Glad you're here. We're just doing a round of tapping. And I want to be present when I'm talking to other people. Fully present. Around the crown of the head. I am ready, willing, and able to do that. Take a nice deep breath in. Let it go. Feeling yourself grounding through your feet, in the base of your spine, into Mother Earth, like you're sending roots down. Breathe in. Breathe out. Good morning, Beth. Glad you're here. Nice deep breath in and out. Present, centered, grounded, ready for today's message. Again, Taking the War Out of Our Words, The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication by Sharon Ellison. And just a reminder too, at 9 o'clock Central Time, we do have our Zoom for the Unity Intention Collective, which is just a group of people from all over who gather for a half an hour. That's all we do is half an hour, and send good energy out into the world, looking to heal the conflicts that are going on right now. And never underestimate the power of even a few people gathering to create good in the world. Remember that saying that we've been working with for a while now, that even if it's a great big hairy ass problem, we don't need a great big hairy ass solution. We just need baby step solutions, incremental change. Incremental change. That's what we're looking for. So for those of you who have the Sharon Ellison book, which if you don't, I'd strongly recommend getting it because it is so helpful, especially for this kind of a thing, a review. Good morning, Mel. Glad you're here. Thank you for all the fun little icons. I appreciate it. Happy Sunday to you as well. Excuse me, frog again. So what we're going to be talking about today is power struggles. Power struggles. There's the big ones and there's the little bitty ones that just kind of chip away at us and erode our good feelings about ourselves and about others, and just time to notice them and decide what we want to do with them. So on page 16, she says, whether a power struggle involves one incident, or has the ongoing character of a soap opera. Once we engage in it, it holds us tight. Can you see national figures locked into a pattern that is not serving them or serving us? Neither person wants to give in, admit error, give in to the other person, even if it would be in our mutual best interest, even if it would be healthier to say, I value you more than I value winning this conversation. So let's put this to rest and move on. So she talks about 4 aspects of defensive behavior in any interaction. So I'd like you to think about someone you're having trouble with right now. Might be that family member that's driving you nuts. Might be the Eeyore that every time they come in the room, the rain starts to fall. Might be the know-it-all at work. Someone that you're struggling with. 4 aspects to any interaction. So I want you to think about these and how that fits. Good morning, Nancy. Glad you are here. Welcome. We build emotional walls. We build emotional walls. We hide information about feelings, thoughts, beliefs, or actions. We have this mistaken belief that if they have that information, somehow they're going to use it for our demise. We give way too much power to that. Brene Brown does a fabulous job talking about that stuff. How keeping things secret and close to our vest really doesn't serve us. It really doesn't. Being vulnerable and open and present can serve us a whole lot better. Third one is seeing the other person as working against our goals, an adversary. We've pitted ourselves against them, us versus them, rather than here are 2 people who want to find an alignment, who want to figure out, and again, not everybody's going to play this game well, right? So you're going to have the people in your life, this person you're thinking about right now and working on in your mind, may be a person who's still in the old way of being. I win or I lose. There are no other options. Okay, they're at where they're at. Now, how do we help you extricate yourself from that? And the last one aspect of defensive behavior in any interaction is engaging in a power struggle. So we build emotional walls. We hide information about feelings, thoughts, beliefs, or actions. We see the other person as working against our goals. They've become an adversary, and we're engaging in a power struggle. Boy, frog today again, too. Anyway, next, there's several aspects of this that she spells out more deeply. So I just want to go over those with you. Power, an object to fight over. When engaged in a power struggle, we perceive power almost as if it were a material object, tangible in some way, like a negative goal that we assume cannot be shared. Power cannot be shared. There's a whole raft of literature now on power with, instead of power over, power with. Most of us take turns winning and losing in our struggles with others. Some people give in on a more permanent basis, losing the war and letting themselves be dominated. I have a client who right now is struggling with this and has struggled with this for the bulk of her life. And the rubber's hitting the road again in terms of, okay, will you stand up for yourself even a little bit and say no to some of these things? You are actively harming yourself and the other person by not having boundaries. You're hurting yourself, you're hurting the other person by not having healthy boundaries and saying no. Is that difficult? Absolutely. But the going along to get along is a death by 1,000 paper cuts. Bound and alienated. This is an interesting piece. See if this fits for you with this person you're thinking about. A very interesting emotional dichotomy occurs during our power struggles. We become simultaneously bound to and alienated from the other person. So we've got this whole thing, right? We become so compulsively locked into our conflict that we spend a great deal of energy thinking about the other person, complaining to others, rehashing our last battle, planning for the next one, and carrying it out, going the next round. It is as if we are locked into a tug of war, only instead of each hanging onto that chunk of gold, pushing and pulling to wrestle it away, we wrestle psychically, pulling and pushing against each other with our thoughts, feelings, and actions. In this way, we become bound, inextricably tied to a person from whom we feel totally estranged. And interestingly, there's several sections in Tosha that talk about that kind of a thing as well. People going through a divorce and they can't get the divorce across the finish line because they're so hung on to, I must squeeze every potential whatever out of this divorce decree. But it keeps them bound to the person they say they're trying to escape from. This condition of being simultaneously bound and alienated explains why we can still be thinking days, weeks, or years after one incident about what we could have said to someone who upset us. So I'm going to go back here a little bit and just share a little story, and then the next comment will make sense. At one workshop, Elena told a story about a coworker, Susan, who had come up to her one day and said, "You look so beautiful in that dress." Feeling warm and open, Elena smiled broadly and responded, "Thank you." Whereupon Susan continued, "Isn't it nice that they are making better clothes for large women now?" Elena was devastated, instantly sinking from feeling joy at looking great to feeling shame that she was overweight, and believed that Susan's comments were intended to make her feel bad. This incident had happened 3 years earlier, and their relationship had never been repaired. In fact, it had become progressively worse. So, she continues, like Elena, who brooded for years over how she could have responded to Susan's remark about her weight, we are still locked into the power struggle. This process applies as much to people we love, such as a spouse or a child, as it does to people we don't even like or even despise. It is a terrible paradoxical trap to be in, regardless of whom we share it with. So I want you to think about the people that you loathe. You absolutely, I can't stand hearing his name. I can't stand looking at him, blah, blah, blah. You're inextricably bound to that person with that kind of energy. Better is to acknowledge, I do not like this person. I do not like what they stand for. I do not like their behaviors. I do not like how they're harming people, whatever it is. And I choose to bless them on their way. I do not need to stay bound psychically to this person. It's bad for me. It's bad for me. Okay. So that was bound and alienated. Then there's winning, the primary goal. In a power struggle, winning becomes the primary goal. And think about that. If this is someone let's say it's your intimate partner, and winning becomes the goal, what's going to happen to that relationship? It begins to circle the drain. Yep. Thus, in many relationships, we carry on perennial battles over politics, religion, or even who started that conflict that ruined the holiday dinner. Winning the argument becomes far more important than gaining understanding or resolution. So even to say to a person as neutrally as possible, because remember, this whole book is about, as you're making these changes, your biggest struggle is saying what you're going to say in neutrality. Not with that edge to your voice, which is really a challenge, but well worth conquering that challenge. A classic example of winning becoming more important occurs in the film Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where two people who once were passionate become hell-bent on destroying each other with words. When our focus is on winning rather than on what we are learning and how we are strengthening our own character, we lose integrity. Let me read that one again. This is a classic for our times. When our focus is on winning rather than on what we are learning and how we are strengthening our own character, we lose integrity. And there's an acceleration of the conflict. When we are bound in a determined to win struggle over power, the conflict will naturally accelerate and intensify. And there's a couple in the book that she talks about, Sally and Marcus, and they've been having ongoing conflicts. After 10 years, the minute Sally saw that Marcus was upset about anything, she instantly felt extreme frustration and anger. As soon as she asked Marcus about what he was feeling, he felt attacked and equally angry. A level of intensity that had at one time been an end point in the argument now had become their starting point. Instantly, they had a reaction to each other, and they were off and running, off to the races, as it were, not a race that's fun to play. Fears of loss and failure. The intensity surrounding our power struggles is further amplified by the fear that even if we win one battle, we might lose the next one. We often develop a deep-seated fear of loss of something tangible, money, house, job, or intangible, control, prestige, respect, love. These fears are not necessarily unrealistic because, as many of us know, we can lose a lot in a power struggle. An ongoing power struggle in the workplace can result in someone's losing a job. At the very least, we may lose any intimacy we feel with another person the minute some cue prompts us to rejoin a particular battle. And it is predictable. I mean, you see this among animals. So you're walking your dog down this road where there's a dog that will always run up to the fence and bark like a maniac, and then your dog loses his shit against the fence, blah, blah. It's a pattern. It repeats. They know their roles. They're playing the game, right? While most of us might naturally experience fear of loss to some degree, the process of being in a power struggle can magnify this fear to the point that it dominates our lives. Our fear of loss can extend into a fear of failure, as well as becoming a generalized fear of not getting what we need unless we win any power struggle that comes our way. So I'll give you an example of this. I have someone in my life right now who made a mistake at work. Does that ever happen to anybody? Making a mistake at work, right? This person grabbed that and ran with it and has now spent the entire weekend off the clock fixing this problem and berating herself for having made a mistake. Where's the joy in life? At its furthest point, our fear can lead us to the philosophical assumption that there is not enough for everyone to get what they need in life. Some psychologists and sociologists refer to this assumption as poverty consciousness. Do we see that anywhere occurring in America? Poverty consciousness. There's not enough. So if you have more, I have less. So I need to wrestle it from you so that I have more and you have less. Total framework that sets us up for failure. The phrase implies that we are focused on scarcity, what we don't have, rather than on abundance, what we do have. This way of seeing usually applies on several levels of existence: material, emotional, and spiritual. Then she talks about conflict avoidance. I see another irony here. While we often feel compelled to try to win any power struggle we engage in, we may also be terrified of conflict, a fear that can also be strongly influenced by cultural background. There are those cultures that fight loudly and proudly, and there are those cultures that just get quiet and pull into themselves and look stern, and very different ways of responding to conflict. Many of us see conflict and power struggle as practically synonymous. We often fear that even a minor argument could escalate rather than resolve differences, costing us more than we are prepared to pay. And given our propensity for power struggle, escalation often does occur at a high price. Therefore, if we want to stay out of a power struggle, we avoid conflict as if it were a fatal disease. What's far more helpful is learning tools to work through a conflict, to view a conflict as actually an opportunity for growth and approaching it as such. The desire to avoid unwanted power struggles can be so extreme that in many cases, if we try to discuss a difference of opinion with someone, we may even be accused of causing conflict. Felicia's family talked passionately about their differences, but they came out of conflicts hugging each other and saying, "I love you." For years, therefore, she could not understand why friends and coworkers reacted so negatively to her when she raised an issue that was bothering her. "People treat me like I'm causing a problem instead of trying to solve it," she said. "If I persist in trying to air out our differences, they start avoiding me." Avoiding conflict usually does not help resolve it. Could someone put that in the feed for us? Avoiding conflict does not usually help resolve it. We are left carrying a tremendous bag of stuff, old frustrations, angers, and hurts around with us. Unfortunately, this bag is not one that we can set down in order to take a rest. Unless we empty it by processing conflict effectively, it stays permanently and heavily on our backs and gets dumped out in other situations. Have you ever had that circumstance where you have a conflict with somebody and to you it's a little deal and to them it's this big hairy deal and they start unloading all kinds of crap? It's because they never emptied that bag. So here's something occurring now that rips a hole in that bag and all of the other unresolved conflicts fall out. And you can stand there and watch and go, wow, this is quite the event. Thank you, Gwen. I appreciate it. So what happens when we're going through all of this with power struggles? Power struggles as addiction. A vast number of recovery resources now teach us that addiction to alcohol, drugs, smoking, or any other unhealthy pattern affects us in several similar ways. Excuse me. First, the addiction exerts control over our behavior. Second, the addiction frequently causes us the illusion that our involvement with it is essential for meeting our needs. Third, the object of our addiction becomes the most important thing in our lives, more important than anything or anyone else. Fourth, the process of addiction becomes progressively more destructive. And finally, the addiction fails to give us what we need, leaving us feeling empty and craving something more. Thus, we repeat the cycle, which exhausts our energy and renders us psychologically and spiritually, if not literally, lifeless. I believe that power struggle functions as an addiction. That would be a great one to put in there. Power struggle functions as an addiction. When we are in a power struggle, we frequently exhibit these same tendencies and characteristics. We have a compulsion to win that can become more important than caring for another person or even our own ethics. The belief that winning is essential to our well-being blinds us to a progressively destructive process that leaves us with less than we started with. This is not a win-win circumstance. People from a variety of cultural backgrounds describe an automatic tendency to respond defensively, creating power struggle. Given the addictive character of power struggle, it may be the most pervasive addiction on earth. What do we see right now in terms of power struggle? Good Lord. But just as we can recover from other addictions, we can recover from this one. To do so, we must face the magnitude of its impact on our lives and its inability to give us fulfillment. When you're in this power struggle, nothing is ever going to be enough. Thank you, Gwen. It's never going to be enough. You conquer one thing. Okay, now we've taken over all our oil reserves. Now what? Now what? Now what? It's never going to be enough. It's never going to end. Far from helping us achieve our goals, power struggle blocks us from meeting two basic human needs: to feel connected to others in love and to maximize our capacity for individual growth. And with that individual growth, there's more than enough to go around. We can all be improving ourselves and loving ourselves more and loving others more ad infinitum. That can go on forever, forever. We need to get this competition, power struggle, I win or I lose philosophy off the stage. Off the stage. We need to address that addiction. We need to address that addiction. So hopefully there were some useful aspects in here. Again, one of the things you can do is join us at 9 o'clock this morning, Central Time. If you already have the link, dig it out. I'm sure you've gotten a bunch of reminders. If you aren't yet on that mailing list, please send me an email now to Bonnie at empowermentandpurpose.com saying you'd like to join the Unity list. And today at 9 o'clock for a half an hour, we're going to connect and we're going to do some energy work on behalf of the United States and the world, because we are in a hot mess and we need to clean things up here. So have an awesome Sunday. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.